All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you all again for joining us on your Wednesday. If it's Wednesday morning, good morning. It's good afternoon here where I'm at, and good evening if you're joining us somewhere a little later in the day. The name of today's webinar is Finding Digital Success in Uncertain Times. And before we dive in, just wanted to get into a little bit of housekeeping. So today's webinar is being recorded. After the webinar, I will go ahead and send this replay as well as the slides to everyone in attendance. Feel free to send through questions as they come. There should be the option for a Q&A in there. We're not going to be answering them as we go through, but we'll be reserving some time at the end of today's webinar to dive into your questions. So please keep them coming throughout the duration of the webinar. If you're joining us from LinkedIn Live, welcome. If you've opted in not to receive emails over there, but would like to get the recap and the replay of this webinar, please feel free to email me at kyle@befoundonline.com. And with that, I want to intro myself a little bit. My name is Kyle Geib. I am the Director of Marketing and Digital Communications here at Be Found Online. Be Found Online, if you're not familiar, we are a digital marketing agency of tight-knit marketing experts looking for digital successes through SEO, paid media, marketing analytics, and of course, strategy. If you have any other questions after the webinar today, please, again, my email is kyle@befoundonline.com. We're really happy and honored to be co-hosting this webinar today with our friend Uday Badami from Google, and also Curtis Gulash, who is the our paid media director at Be Found Online. So with that, I'm going to turn the mic over and we can begin finding digital success in uncertain times.
I can do my intro next, Kyle. Thank you for that introduction. And welcome to everyone that has joined us today. I'm Uday Badami. I work as the strategic agency manager. I work with Google in partnership with Be Found Online. The reason that we're here today, and I'll get into this in a minute, but Be Found Online is certainly looked at one of the modern agencies within our Google program. And part of that is providing them with benefits such as webinars, extensive resources, beta opportunities, things like that. So I've had the pleasure of working with Be Found Online for a few months now, and I've really enjoyed working with the entire team, which is probably a good segue into my main point of contact. Curtis, did you want to do your intro?
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Curtis Gulash, been at BFO about 8.5 years now. I oversee the paid media team. Our CEO, Steve, once heard me say this on a call, so I stick to it. What does paid media mean? If you can attach a credit card, that's what my team does. It could be digital bus stop advertisements. It could be paid search ads, which we work with Uday on. It could be Performance Max ads that we also work with Uday on. Lots of different opportunities for us. It includes programmatic, LinkedIn ads, Meta, TikTok, all that fun stuff. So that's not to say that we're forgetting about Google, because Google is a large part of what we do and a large part of what y'all do, which is why you're here. So thank you.
Awesome. So I did touch upon this a little bit, but Be Found Online is what we call a Google Premier Partner. So in the tiers of partnership with Google, Be Found Online is certainly at the top tier. And through their Premier Partnership, they get access to not just headcount allocation from Google, but also the opportunity to do something collaborative, such as this webinar. And it's really interesting because Curtis and I were talking about, what's the current state of the economy and how are conversations going with your clients and what's the sentiment out there in the industry right now. And we realized that it's a good moment for us to talk about the economic uncertainty, talk about how Google and Be Found Online in collaboration can help your different businesses, your unique business challenges. So I just want to stress on the fact that because Be Found Online is titled a Premier Partner with Google, it gives them the opportunity to get exclusive access to webinars such as this. All right. So with that, jumping into the meat of today's content, we're essentially here to talk about how can you as a business owner, or how can you as a service offerer find digital success in uncertain times. We know that the market's changing pretty consistently. We know that consumer behavior is changing pretty consistently. And as long as technology continues to evolve, and yes, AI, that's what we're looking at, that's what we're talking about, um, it results in a lot of different consumer shifts that we think it's important for you as a business owner to know about, so that you can start shaping your strategy, your paid media strategy, to find success in this environment, right? So uncertainty certainly remains top of mind for a lot of different clients that I have worked with recently. It may not be too much of a surprise to anyone on this webinar as well, but that's kind of the reason why BFAN Online and Google wants to answer or address certain questions like, how can you prepare as a business owner? How can you actually find tactical success in economic uncertainty? And most importantly, how can we support you through this entire process? So we're going to talk about a few high-level insights on what are we currently observing in the industry right now. As you probably know, Google does a lot of different surveys and analysis on getting the industry sentiment, understanding it, and shaping our strategy accordingly. What we're currently seeing right now is very, very related to what a lot of us on this call are probably feeling in our day-to-day lives as well. But what we know for a fact is that prices have been going up, as you can see on this slide. This is certainly for a lot of different reasons, but the main one that we can probably attribute this to is the recovery from the pandemic, or a post-pandemic recovery, is causing a lot of prices to increase. The red line that you see over here essentially is the CPI, or Consumer Price Index. This is at an all-time high when we look at up until the end of 2022. And in a little bit, I'll talk through more recent insights that we're seeing in 2023. But I think this is no surprise to most of us on this meeting over here. But what does this actually translate to, right? So you're probably wondering, okay, you told me the insight, how is consumer behavior shifting accordingly? What we are seeing in the industry right now is consumers are trying to spend more, but also buy less quantity. They're also looking for good deals. They're looking for niche services that you as a business owner can offer to them. But while spending may not be that much of an option, or affordability may not be that high anymore, the usage of credit cards, or the dependency on credit cards, is subsequently increasing. So I'm sure you can see kind of the direct correlation between spending increasing and the dependency on credit cards. What we're also seeing is that no sector is unimpacted by this or unaffected by this, because every major sector is experiencing some sort of inflation, some sort of economic downturn. And I think a lot of this, like I mentioned, is still the continued impact of the pandemic, right? So if I think about airfare as an example, I personally have started traveling a lot, I'd say over the last 12, 16 months. And I think when we collectively as consumers drive the market, we notice that prices increase, right? So a lot of the consumer behavior is driven around different industries, different verticals being impacted in very similar ways. But there is a key insight in this also, and I'll explain the visual that you're seeing in a second. But most customers or most consumers are not cutting back as much as you think, and not yet. To tell you why we're observing this, is the blue line that you see over here essentially represents how much income we had left over after all of our wages during the pandemic, right? But if we look at all of those months above the yellow line, we have developed a war chest of savings, in addition to the fact that the government gave out stimulus checks. We built a war chest of savings. Wages also did start increasing post-pandemic. So essentially what we're trying to say over here is, while economic uncertainty still remains top of mind, consumers do have flexibility when it comes to affordability and how much disposable income they actually have, which again has a direct impact on your business and how they interact with your business, how much they transact with your business, and things like that. But this higher wages just gives people a little bit of extra cushion when it comes to affordability. That being said, we are talking a lot about inflation, and it is important to say that inflation is slowly depleting that war chest that we have saved up for all of these months, right? And it does feel kind of awful. I'd say probably more on a personal note. Some of you may resonate with this, but it's not a great feeling. A lot of consumers in the industry, in the market right now, are probably feeling this, feeling the impact that inflation has overall. Um, and the main consumer shift that we're seeing when it comes to, all right, how do I react to this situation, is we're seeing an increase in payday loans, which is no surprise, but we're also seeing just a much higher credit card utilization rate. I'm forgetting the specific stat, but I think year over year, it was a significant increase in just the amount of utilization of credit card income and credit card debt did continue to increase. So all of this is to say that inflation remains top of mind, but consumers do feel like that they have that spending flexibility, and how they're using that flexibility is through their credit cards. Right. So you're probably wondering, can you get a little bit more specific? Can you tell me from a more specific standpoint, what exactly does the consumer want from me? How should I be thinking about messaging my business out there in the industry? The short answer that I would say is, as a business owner, you have to think about your niche differentiator, right? What makes you different from a similar store down the block or a similar store in a neighborhood, state, or city? Think through what makes your USP different, what makes your IP different, and what it is that you can offer to consumers that other folks cannot. And the reason I'm making the suggestion is because the way we see cost cutting happening is we're still seeing a lot of people spending, right, at very normal rates, but the types of transactions, the types of services and products that they're looking for is constantly evolving. So a few of the examples that I put down over here is generic drugs, cheap phone plan, cheap food near me, and bundling discount. I think it's pretty evident that the commonality or the common theme between all of these searches and growth in searches is that people are looking for a deal. They're looking for a discount, they're looking for a deal. The way I translate that with my Google brain is that they're trying to look for what's different in your business, right? Because if you are offering the exact same thing that they can get for cheaper elsewhere, that's probably increasing your bounce rate. So as a business owner, before we even jump into Google specifically and the tactics that you can adopt with Google and how you can work with BFO online, the first thing that you should probably think about is, what is my differentiator as a business owner? I want to provide just a few more examples of consumer shifts that we're seeing that you'll probably see on the slide over here. They are looking for ways to reduce spend. Credit card utilization increases, but everybody loves a good deal, right? I love a good deal. I'm sure everyone on this meeting loves a good deal. A few of the key examples that I want to call out is that people are driving less now because of increased gas prices. People are rethinking social events and attending social events. People are putting less money into their savings, which probably has long-term impact. And I think a lot of this kind of just shouts that there is investment happening right now, right? People are putting in less savings, people are driving less because they don't want to invest in areas that are too expensive. Instead, they would invest in areas where they find a good deal, right? So think about your average consumer, what it is that they're trying to look for, and then just kind of, I guess, intrinsically look at your business and say, if I were a consumer, do I feel like I'm understanding what this business has to offer to me? Do I feel like it's compelling enough for me to actually transact with this business? And is your business part of any of these? And how can you adapt that then, right? How can you adapt and say, sure, you may not be looking for this specifically, but this is what we can offer. I think there's a lot of upsell, cross sell, and just differentiating opportunities as a business in general. You're probably wondering why I do sound this gloom about inflation and economic uncertainty. We just like we believe in being transparent with people that we speak with, so we can have meaningful conversations about the reality of the situation. But a few other examples that I wanted to give you is there are a lot of signals that inflation may have peaked at this point of time. And some of us, again, on this meeting may be feeling those in our day-to-day lives as well. But a few examples are from a core standpoint, non-food and energy, a lot of that inflation is slowing down. Gas prices, as we all know, are also reducing. I live in New York, so I don't have a car. Thankfully, I don't need to drive. But if you've been to New York, you probably agree with me that I should not have a car. So I don't have that gas problem personally. But even if we look at retail, some of the kind of leading companies like Target and Walmart, they're starting to see inventory levels come back, right? So some of you on this meeting may have experienced supply chain issues coming out of the pandemic, and I know that that was a huge contributor to economic downturn. But from a retail or e-commerce standpoint, we're seeing a lot of the shelves being stocked up again, a lot of consumer demand increasing on the retail and e-commerce space. Um, and at the end of it, I think, again, it's important to reiterate that people are still looking for a good deal, right? If I think about my own airfare experience over the last 12 months, I'm pretty sure that I found some sort of coupon or good deal on a flight that I'm trying to get. And I'd like to believe that personally, my mindset has changed coming out of the pandemic because we were forced to think in a certain way for a couple of years. And a lot of us are trying to readjust to that normal, the reality again, right? So a few examples, we don't know when inflation would completely peak and be behind us and when we can kind of look back at it. But this is why it's so important for you as a client to think about what is my strategy and take the necessary steps that you have in your control to get through this together. And I did touch upon this a little bit, but everybody's business is different. Each of your businesses are unique, and each of you probably have not just a unique selling point, but you have unique business challenges, right? So it's certainly not a one size fits all, but this feels like a good pivotal time for us as Google and Be Found Online to be trusted partners to you and to guide you on what is the most cost efficient and ROI based strategy that we can offer to you to make sure that you are still being profitable during this time, right? So again, important to reiterate that not every category is the same, not every business is the same. For some of your businesses, demand may be healthy right now. If anything, it may be booming. For some of yours, it may not be that good, right? Demand may be threatened. You may feel like we're still waiting for that uptake. And I think being in either situation is completely understandable based on all of the insights that we just talked through. Curtis, anything you wanted to add on this?
Not at this point, no. I think a couple slides in is when I'll add in the paid side of things.
Okay, perfect. So let's jump into Curtis. It feels like you segued this perfectly. So thank you.
You're
Let's
welcome.
yeah, let's jump into. Sure, you gave me a lot of good insights and stats, but let's jump into the tactics and talk about what can we actually do from a tangible standpoint to help your business be profitable. So, three different tactics that we put down, and Curtis and I will jump into each of these individually in a couple minutes, but at a very, very high level, it is a very crucial point in time where you have to keep pace with changing consumer behavior, changing consumer demand. And from a Google Ads or paid search standpoint or paid media standpoint, the three things that we recommend you focus on. The first one is tighten the alignment between marketing metrics and business priorities. The simplest way that I like explaining this is, when you sit with your board of directors or your internal stakeholders, the types of conversations and how you strategize on running an efficient business, does that always translate to Google Ads, right? Does Google Ads know what is the most important KPI that I'm trying to drive as a business? One of the key examples I'll give you is revenue. I think it's a very, very known fact that every business is trying to drive revenue, but Google Ads does not necessarily always know that, right? And when we get into the specifics of it, we'll give you some suggestions on how you can interact with Google Ads to make sure that it has all of the relevant business context it needs to have. to kind of direct your advertising strategy in the most efficient way possible, right? So that's number one. Number two is using a privacy first measurement and relevant first party data. I cannot stress more on this. The importance of first party data continues to grow week on week, I would say, right? I'm sure a lot of you know that cookies will be deprecated soon, and the reliance that you as a business owner will have on your CRM providers or just your how robust your first party data strategy is will be extremely significant. So what I do also want to state is that, again, I mentioned this earlier, not every business is the same, right? Some of you may be working with highly sophisticated CRM partners. Some of you may still be thinking or planning out your CRM or first party data strategy. Whatever stage you are in, I think it's completely understandable. My suggestion would be, if you are in the second of the two stages that I mentioned, it's a crucial time for you to start advancing some of those conversations and make sure that you are investing in a good CRM provider. Make sure that you are collecting all of the right data that you should be collecting, because this point ties back to the first point, which is how you can communicate with Google Ads and tell Google Ads that, hey, these are my most important audiences, these are my most important conversions. This is the best way for you to do that, right? By using your CRM data or your first party data and importing that back into Google Ads, you provided so much direction on who is my most profitable or relevant consumer. And this helps because a lot of your strategy is defined by this one aspect, right? And the third and final one that I want to talk about is just finding your most valuable customers. All three are very similar in some way, but they're also different in certain ways. I think adopting a testing and learning mindset is probably my biggest recommendation over here. I always like saying progress over perfection. I understand that we're trying to get to perfection, but if you are not progressing, you're not going towards perfection, right? So we'll talk a lot about how AI in general or Google's AI strategies can help make sure that we are finding the most valuable customers for you. Um, and I know that having worked with BFO Online, they have a very robust strategy and POV on how you should be thinking through a lot of these. Um, Curtis, anything else that I missed? Anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I can jump into the next slide if it
Okay,
works for you.
perfect.
So I'm not going to go line for line here. I know y'all can read, and we'll send out a video afterwards. So really, you need to, I'm going to call it pull in an all hands on deck here. You need to talk to your SEO team. You need to talk to your analytics team. If you have salespeople, you need to bring them in. If you have customer service reps who answer the phone, everyone needs to be involved in this. With people tightening their purse strings and ad clicks going up in terms of cost per click, you need to determine what's priority. So it's objective, it's measurement, it's bidding strategy. You also have to decide, like, what's the goal? Is it an awareness goal? If so, run those YouTube ads, run those discovery ads, run your display ads, because we know that those don't always convert the first click, but they do help nurture those leads. Is it a revenue goal? I'm fully drinking the Google Kool-Aid here, but if so, start your campaign on max clicks. Don't use eCPC. And then when you hit that minimum threshold of conversions, it's 15 conversions over 30 days. You change it over to an ROI goal or a CPA goal. So that way the algorithm is taking over and it's really helping trim the fat and optimize based on what you need to do. The other thing we never want to forget about is retargeting. I always tell my team, like, what's step two? Or ask them what's step two. You can't just launch a campaign without knowing what step two is. So think about that. Is it retargeting? Is it going from an awareness play to getting them to schedule a call with your sales rep or download the white paper? Is it taking a brand, call it non-loyalist, someone who's new to you, and turning them into a loyalist? So is it getting in front of them when there's a new product launch or a new service launch? All of these things, they add up to that lifetime value. In addition, and this kind of spoils things a little bit here as we're talking about your personal data and your team data or your customer data, with GA4 changing things, it's not, we can't see things as linear as possible. It's not, or sorry, not so definitive. It's not just that last click and then they're gone. We were actually looking at a client's account today. The majority of their conversions that we were looking at came first day from paid search. The second set of data took 5 interactions before someone converted on the site. You have to think about those things. And that's what GA4 is showing us is it's your paid search campaign, it's your organic, it's your paid social. All of these things feed into one another. So it can't just be so myopic as paid search is bad, paid social is good. You have to look at the aggregate of things and figure out how do these all influence the consumer as they're making their way through your site and ultimately converting.
I love that. Just kind of insights driven marketing, right? That's a lot of what I was taking away from that. And yeah, just to add on, not to get kind of too tactical about this, but Google does have a solution for any business stage, any business challenge that you have. I love the way you explained it, Curtis, but we think of it as awareness, consideration, and lead generation almost. You could also have 2 different priorities, and I think that's very okay as well. You could have part of your service that you rely heavily on Google search for that drives kind of that bread and butter conversions, but you could also have a need to drive more awareness, right? I think this is probably not a time to get complacent, in my opinion. So just think through, all right, so we are having these conversations internally in our board meeting. Again, is that getting translated to Google Ads? What KPIs am I trying to measure? Is my Google Ads strategy reflecting that, right? So I think that's the most important thing for us to all start thinking about.
Mm-hmm. For sure. This one, we've all heard about GA4. We all know it's coming. As we've mentioned, cookies are going away. We know they're going away. We don't know when. So we have to really consider first-party measurement, privacy. We've got the CCPA coming up on July 1st, as well as GA4 or Universal Analytics being sunset. So you have to be thinking about these things, not just from protecting your data and your customers, but also how can you tap into this information? One of the things, Kyle and I always talk about is like, well, where can we find this data? Where is it? It's in GA4. You've got in-market audiences. You've got affinity audiences. You don't even have to run ads, and the information is sitting in there. You can apply those learnings to your campaigns. And the Google Ads side, you've got demographic information. It's age, it's gender, it's household income. Household income is not broken apart by, they make over 100K a year, but it is in there. So you can stack these things to determine how do we bid up or down. You've got day parting, you've got geo performance. So all of this information should be looked at as you're developing your marketing strategies, because you may find out that you need to target moms in the Chicago suburbs who are between 45 and 54 because they are the ones driving all your revenue. Free bit of advice here. When you look at that information and you see unknown, unless unknown is tanking your performance, don't shut it off. And we say that because if people are using ad blockers, they're using a search engine like DuckDuckGo, that information is not going to pass through, but they can still be driving revenue. So unless it's all bad traffic and it's just a lot of clicks with no sales, don't block it. Just let it go. Try and ignore it, but it's there and it is driving revenue.
Perfect. I just wanted to add that, again, I say a lot of different things, but I also like saying control the controllables, especially in a time like this. I think Curtis gave a lot of great tactical, practical examples of how you can go to market with this. But again, just at a high level, we wouldn't want you to be in a position where you don't have a lot of other options and you need to start investing in this strategy, in your GA4 strategy. So if you feel like you don't have a good grasp on it, think about a few of the suggestions that Curtis just talked through, and talk to the team working on your GA4 strategy and ask them these questions, right? Challenge them on, do I have the most efficient strategy? Am I using GA4 and just PCM in general? Am I using it to its best ability? And it's a revenue driver. So control the controllables. If there is an aspect or a tactic or a feature that you can control and actually guide your advertising strategy on, you should feel empowered and excited to use that strategy. Right. Yeah. And just the other one, the third one is using AI-powered solutions. I'm not going to get too technical with this because AI is clearly the buzzword out there, and it seems to be everywhere at this point of time. So the way I would translate this essentially is I really like the concept of a lead to sale journey. I usually give this example of let's just take an automotive example of I'm someone who's looking to buy a car, right? As a consumer, what are the different steps that I take from the day that I start researching which car, make, model, brand, all of that I would like, to the day that I actually buy the car. Now, as a business owner, right, or if you own a dealership, for example, or you own any brick and mortar store, any business that you own or that you work on, think about this consumer. What are the different steps that they take from the first time they realize that my brand exists to the day that they actually converted with us, right? In this example, this automotive example, I'd probably say I viewed one of the car product pages, right? I then made a phone call to that dealership. I then went and visited that dealership. I probably applied for financing, and then I made the actual sale, or I actually bought the car. These are 5 crucial steps for you to be tracking in Google Ads. This comes back to the concept that I was saying earlier, that you need to feed Google Ads with the information that you think it needs to know about your business, not just your advertising strategy, but your advertising strategy is defined by your business goals. If these are the 5 different steps that you know for sure that your consumer would take to transact with your business, number one, you should be tracking all of them. And number two, when you get to that level of sophistication that Curtis was mentioning earlier, that you have enough data, you should be thinking about a more profitable or conversion based bid strategy. That could mean target CPA for your business, or that could mean maximize conversion value. But the reason we talk about bid strategies and using a more sophisticated bid strategy is because if you tell Google Ads that these are the 5 most important steps that I want you to track for me, right? You also need to tell Google Ads, how do I prioritize those different steps, right? So in this example, the fact that I went into the dealership is probably the biggest value driver for the business, right? Versus me just looking at their product page. But when you think about how does Google Ads translate this data, Google Ads right now thinks that all 5 actions mean the exact same to you, right? So you have to think about, does Google Ads know the difference between my different conversion actions? Am I prioritizing them? Do I have all of them in there in the first place? That's kind of the simple version of how I would translate, using AI powered solutions. A lot of it revolves around your business needs and communicating that to Google Ads, using the right bid strategy, and also thinking about what is my messaging? What kind of messaging do I want to get out there via my creatives? That's a big aspect of it also.
If I can add something to this, so we talked about buying a car. It's the different steps. You do the research online, you go to a dealership. Another way you can look at this, and we did this for a hotel client. So we set up RLSA. So if you don't know what that means, it's remarketing list for search ads. So you've been to the page before, but you're still searching. So what we would do for them is, if they search for the location, so Las Vegas, and they're still searching, so that's bucket one. Bucket two is the date range. Bucket three is the property they're going to visit. And bucket four was the rooms they were looking at. So with each step, they're getting further along the conversion path. So we could actually bid up based on where they were. So smaller audience at the bottom where they've selected a suite versus 2 queen beds, but that's more valuable to us. So we're going to pay more cost per click for that one versus someone just searching for Las Vegas vacations. And with this client, the CPA just, it kept going down and down and down because we were bidding intelligently. And this is all AI. I mean, we were doing this 5, 6 years ago, and we didn't call it AI then. It was just intelligent bidding. So you can do all of these things, add to the cart, add the coupon code, multiple items, whatever your business is, we can help you determine how do we bid up or down based on where the user is in the conversion path.
It's a great point, Curtis. And again, I'd encourage everyone to think this through, that my current advertising strategy, think about what Curtis just mentioned. Does that reflect in your current advertising strategy? And if not, what changes do we need to make? All right. We're also at a stage where every single media dollar counts because it's still economic uncertainty. And I think YouTube continues to play a huge role when it comes to some of the largest TV advertisers. So if you are someone that is currently advertising on TV, I can confidently say that YouTube has a strategy that, if not directly compares to it, is probably a better model of that. I think traditionally TV has always been looked at as reaching, the masses and getting millions of eyeballs to view your content. But I think there has always been a lack of intent, a lack of targeting, a lack of direction, and most importantly, just a lack of measurement, right? If I ask you to think about, your YouTube strategy versus your Google Ads strategy, sorry, your YouTube strategy versus your TV strategy, how much information do you have to make good decisions on that strategy, right? And I think YouTube provides a lot of that. But I talked a little bit about kind of intent. There's a lot of reach. We talked about awareness being one of your business needs. I think YouTube should be your first stop uh, to get that messaging out there in a very creative, compelling, creative format. But you have the option to be very direct on who do I want to see my ad, right? Maybe you want everyone in the US to see your ad. There's a solution for that. We could do bumper ads, we could do a YouTube reach campaign, or maybe, like Curtis was saying earlier, you want a slightly more performance based strategy. That's an option too through video action campaigns. Regardless of what you are trying to solve for as a business, there is an option, a specific tactical option within YouTube to solve for that, right? So keep that in mind and think about how does my TV strategy compare to my digital strategy, and do I need to make some adjustments over there? The final thing that I'll say is recently Google came up with YouTube Shorts, which I'm sure some of you may have heard of. Um, it's probably the quickest growing platform right now across all Google properties. So if that's something that you're not on, I would highly encourage you to think about that. It's also a great way for you to de-risk your social strategy. If you do have a lot of social investment and you're looking to de-risk that, YouTube Shorts does offer a very direct strategy in comparison to that. And I talked about this a little bit, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but you have the option of bidding in different formats, right? So if you have an awareness goal, you should probably think about skippable CPMs, or cost per 1,000 impressions. The reason I say this is we try to make things comparable to either social strategies or your TV strategy. So if these are the metrics like TRP, GRP, all of that you are tracking right now, we want to be able to provide a way for you to track the same thing within Google itself. Now, another strategy that I'll encourage you to think about is, let's say, for example, you're a business it's a highly seasonal business, or you have a lot of promotional products, a lot of flighted products or flighted services. I think bumper ads are a great way to get that messaging out there. It's a 6-second video ad, um, very, very action oriented because you have to have a call to action in there. So think about the experience of watching a quick, snackable 6-second video with a call to action. This is a great moment for you to call out that promotion, call out that new launch, new product launch, service launch, whatever else it is. It's a great way for you to get massive reach at a very efficient rate. All right, so concluding this part of it, 3 key things that we talked about. The first one is align your marketing metrics to business priorities. To recap that specific section, think about, what are my main KPIs? Am I tracking those in Google Ads? Does Google Ads have the information it needs to be as efficient as possible? Do I have a CRM provider? How am I thinking about my first party data strategy? Um, which segues into kind of using a privacy first measurement strategy. It's going to be a growing need. So again, if you are someone that is in a very nascent stage of this, it's a good time to advance those conversations and think about, the different remarketing strategies that Curtis mentioned. Think about how you're feeding Google Ads this information. And the final one was capture changing consumer demand with AI-powered solutions. We talked a lot about, bid strategies over here. We talked a lot about making sure that you have that lead to sale journey mapped out, whether you're a lead gen client or an e-commerce client. There is a consumer journey that you can map out on your end, and then look at Google Ads and say, does Google Ads know this? Does it know which are my most important consumers, my most important conversions, and have I prioritized and given it that information it needs, not just to go and spread its wings, but also to be very intentional and relevant with the types of ads we show and the people we show those ads to. One other thing that I wanted to add, I talked about this a little bit at the start of this meeting, but I do want everyone on this meeting to feel like we are in this together, because we are certainly feeling a lot of this economic impact as Google. Um, so we do understand kind of where you're coming from. What I wanted to present over here is a digital maturity framework that we as Google often follow. And what this framework essentially helps us identify is agencies within our program, right? Be Found Online, for example, within our Google program, what stage are they in? I can safely say that they are in the modern marketer stage, based on everything that Curtis mentioned today as well, that insights-based marketing, data-based marketing, having a thorough strategy in there. A lot of what he was saying, gives me a lot of confidence that if this is the level of expertise I can expect from Be Found Online, I think it's a great experience that you can expect. So I did want to say that having worked with them, I can confidently say that they do embrace data and technology to its best ability, and they can offer you a good, solid strategy based on your current business needs.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to brag about BFO, if that's okay with everyone. Jumping in here, experience. Our average team member has 8 years experience in digital marketing. That's not to say, we haven't brought on people who were a little bit greener. We've brought on some interns from DePaul University, Go DePaul, where a lot of us have taught, that have turned into be some of our best employees and full-time employees at that. But we do prefer to hire people who have some experience under them, so they know what they're doing. So we're not having to teach them as they go. They've got a good solid base of their knowledge, and then we can amplify it with our team. We specialize in paid media, SEO, analytics, and strategy. You get strategy in everything you do. But if you want us to just develop a strategy for you, put a nice little bow on it and hand it to you, we can do that as well. And we don't have to implement any of it. And then networks. We're part of a lot of different networks. Our two owners, Steve and Dan, if you're from Chicago, you've probably bumped into them somewhere, whether at a speaking engagement, whether a networking event. Plus, we are part of networks like Nostos, AMA Chicago. We want to work with people and other companies like ours. So if there's something we don't do, we've got some people we can reach out to for it. And even if it's just like, hey, guys, we need some banner ads created, we've got some tried and true freelancers that we're going to pass them right over to you. We're not going to mark up the cost. You're going to be working with them directly. In terms of expertise, we've got experience across B2C and B2B. We could further segment this and say we've got experience in lead gen, we've got experience in e-commerce, we've worked with franchises, we've worked in hospitality, we've worked in healthcare, we've worked in payday loans, something that was brought up earlier. So we've got a lot of experience across the boards, working with small accounts all the way up to the big ones. In addition, not BFO, we've got a lot of experience working at other agencies and in other industries. Some of our team members have worked on giant auto accounts. Some people have worked on e-commerce accounts that literally have 20,000 plus products that we're running ads for. So we're not a green agency. We've got a lot of experience. Our goal is a better customer experience. As we say, we are 100% transparent. We don't mark up cost per clicks. You have full access to your accounts. We don't hide anything from you. We're very transparent, and the data is yours at the end of the day. It's never ours. And we want to make sure everything is goal-based. So what are you trying to accomplish versus what's your ROI? So it's great to have, a 6-to-1 ROI, but if we don't have longevity for your customers, then what are we really doing for you? And lastly, evolving. Our team stays curious. We constantly join each other's calls, whether paid media joining SEO. We jump into each other's accounts. My team probably gets annoyed that I jump into their accounts, look around and say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's figure out what we can do here. We use AI in everything we do, whether it's bidding algorithms, whether it's testing some chat GPT copy versus human written copy. We are embracing the change. And like I said before, we've been doing it for years before it was even called AI. And then the strong and growing partner network. Our CEO, Steve, is literally at a speaking engagement right now, building the network, talking to folks, trying to figure out not only what BFO can do, but perhaps what we're not doing right so we can improve upon it.
There's one bucket that I think we're missing over here that I wanted to add, and I think that's something I mentioned initially, but your partnership with Google, I think also goes a really, really long way, because you have additional headcount through that partnership. You have, I know we worked a lot on assigning specific Google reps on individual clients of yours that need a little extra support. So, and anything that we offer to be found online also trickles into all of the clients that you work with. So just that fourth bucket of the partnership.
Yes, that's huge. So a real example, we've got a client who needs some love. So they have their dedicated Google account manager who rolls up under Uday. So that way, we've got kind of the two-faceted approach there. So that way we know there's accountability both on our side, the client side, and on the Google side as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
We've got a couple case studies we'll go over real quick. The first one, this is for a tile client. As I said before, y'all can read, you'll get a video of this, so I'm just going to go through it. So this client, they do not sell direct to consumer, and they don't have the same footprint as the big box stores. So what we are trying to do is drive awareness of the brand and ultimately drive sales for them. So what we did, we used Google Ads to reach new users, increase our site traffic, and drive conversions. This was everything from bidding on terms for the surface types that they carry. We did some competitor conquesting. We did some brand terms. I do want to call out, in addition to using Google, we ran ads on Houzz, we ran ads on Nextdoor.com, we ran ads on LinkedIn as well, so we could reach the people who are talking direct to consumer to talk about our brand, to get the, builders and contractors to become brand loyalists as well. In Google, search ads, discovery, performance max, display, and YouTube, we use first-party data. We looked at the SEM accounts to figure out what's working, what's not, and then that machine learning, that AI. So bidding to a goal, making sure we're reaching new customers instead of people who've already been to the site before. Through it all, new users increased 40%. Our click-through rate increased 29%. Our conversion rate improved 38%, and then our cost per conversion decreased by 9%. We were actually talking about this internally. So we used AI for this, but we did find in some areas the AI campaigns didn't quite perform as well as we wanted them to. So we actually took a more manual approach to those. And I think that's crucial, because we're not just sitting on our hands. We don't just hit go on an algorithm and walk away from your accounts expecting magic to happen. So we always have that human touch to this, because we're only as smart as the data, or the algorithms are only as smart as the data that we're putting into them. So we're making sure that we're leaning on our Google team for things like this. They're holding us accountable, because there are a couple times it's like, hey guys, you hit that minimum conversion threshold. Let's change this one. It all works seamlessly, and we saw great results for this client.
Yeah, I love the full funnel approach here, Curtis. I think you were mentioning earlier that give the right credit to every individual strategy. So like discovery could help search, could help YouTube. So I love the full funnel approach here.
Yes, absolutely. All right, beauty franchise client. So this one was fun. The client came to us. We were managing their national campaign for search. And they said, hey, can you manage campaigns for individual franchisees? There were over 150 of them, and they all had individual needs and individual budgets. Now, I say that because it could have been one guy in Oklahoma City with one location, or it could have been all of Washington, D.C., which we called a co-op. So we had to develop these new strategies for the individual owners and the co-ops. We gave them options: paid search, paid social, programmatic, phone ads, and streaming audio. We laid them out as options, but we also put that strategy together. With your budget, here's what we recommend doing. With your goal, here is what we recommend doing. We also built some custom real-time reporting dashboards in Looker, not an intentional plug of Google, but it is a Google property. Looker Studio is great. You can input data. It can automatically pull it in. This cut down on the need for reporting calls, so we didn't have to have 150 plus calls every month to talk about performance. Through this, new customers increased 16%. Lapsed customers increased by 24%. In this case, we targeted people who hadn't booked in 90 days. We had a specific audience for these. Boom, we put new ads in front of them, got people to come back. Click-through rate improved over 100%, and then our cost per booking decreased 58%. Now, I want to tell you about this. We did this with 6 people. We didn't outsource anything. It was all done by BFO employees. We did not work on the weekends to accomplish this. No one was crying at the end of the day. And we used AI for a lot of this. So the client told us, here's our demographic. Here's who we think we should target. We went after those people, but we also used lookalike audiences through the AI. We call it a predictive audience. So it's a lookalike based on a conversion action. You don't put parameters in there. You just let it run and do its thing. And what we found out was we were getting people who weren't in the customer's core or the client's core demographic booking at a cheaper rate than those in the core demographic, which opened up their marketing strategy, making them realize that there was a niche market that they catered to that they needed to start broadcasting.
Almost reminds me of finding an audience you didn't know existed for you.
Exactly. Yes, that's what it was. It was, and I say this about AI. Machines are not biased. They see ones and zeros and they optimize accordingly. So we may say, you know, we only want women this age or we only want men this age, but there's an audience out there that you don't know exists. So be open to it, trust the machine, see what it's going to do. Worst case, you learn something. Best case, you drive revenue.
Yeah. And the one insight that I wanted to share, just looking at kind of both of these slides, right? There's such a range in expertise. What you've done with this client, what your team has done with this client is very, very different compared to this client that you worked on. So I'm just seeing such a range of expertise that you have across different strategies, which is awesome to see.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I see we've got a couple questions in here.
We do, and I'm jumping back on. Did you guys miss me? I figured I would get out of the way for a little bit and let you guys do your thing, demonstrate some expertise. Thank you for that. This was awesome. I was following along from the sidelines. But yeah, we had a couple questions come through here. I'm just going to go ahead and start at the top. So this one came through a little bit earlier in the presentation. It was around the slide for AI, the using AI-powered solutions. So the question is, how, as a digital marketing agency, do you set up this level of specification in your client's Google ads? Do you interview the client, or does the client have to think through each step and tier to give you that data to input? It seems daunting, and I wonder how Be Found Online helps make the difference.
I wouldn't say we interview you. We are collaborative. You know your business better than we do. It doesn't matter if you're an auto manufacturer. I've worked on them before, but I probably haven't worked for yours. So we do need some input from you there. We can look at your first party data in Google Analytics, in GA4, in your Google Ads accounts, in your Facebook account. We can look at all of this stuff and we'll develop a strategy for it. We don't want it to be daunting. But we do want you to share whatever information you think is relevant. We can't live in a silo, and if you're giving us 10% of the information you have on your clients, we're not going to succeed. But if you're honestly overwhelming us with data, please let us know. And I'll give you a real example here. We had a client, they were a custom printer. They could print anything. We had the campaigns all set up based on what they call things. There was lookbooks, there were leave behinds, there were table tents. Through all of this, they had a sales team, and their sales team started communicating to us like, hey, this guy came in off a lookbook ad, but we're actually doing custom comic book printing for him now. we never thought about promoting comic book printing for this client. And just that level of communication helped us open up their business, because we're not going to know that people are converting off of comic books, but the sales team does. We're not going to know if you're selling MacBooks to hundreds of schools versus, you know, a B2B business that we're actively targeting. So share that information with us. Let us develop our strategy. Let us write your copy. Give us your brand book. We'll write it. We'll work together with it. Heck, if we need to send it to legal and wait 7 days for them to approve it, we can do that too. We want a collaboration. We want a partnership. We want to do the work, but we do want you to be working with us.
Very well said. Yeah, thank you for that, Curtis.
Thank you.
All right, trucking right along here. Does your team create the content used in the ads? Can you write blog articles we can add to our website and promote in our campaigns via email, social, etc.?
So yes, we write the content in the ads if you want us to. We have some clients who, I mentioned legal has to write all their copy, and so we deploy it. But if you give us a brand book, we can write copy. We've had clients who literally say, this is the landing page, and we write copy based on what the landing page says. We can write blog articles and content to promote, whether on your site via social media. That is another part of what BFO does, is content writing. Adam, who's on our SEO team, oversees all of our content writers. So we can do things like that. I will say we don't do banner ad creative. We do have resources we can use, but plugging Google here, Google has made running discovery ads, GDN, Google Display Network ads, so much easier. 2 images, 1 logo, and we can run banner ads. It's that simple. I don't have to tell you I need a 300 by 250, a 728 by 90, all of that anymore. No, 2 images, 1 logo. We can run ads through discovery, through display, on YouTube. It's super easy to do. And while we're talking about YouTube, you don't have to create video ads for us anymore. Just give us a YouTube link and we can promote that. We don't even have to upload it. Click the link, it's in the ads, we're running. Google has made things so much easier than when I started doing this 12 years ago.
I'll just add one thing there, Curtis, very well said. And I know we talked about the Google Creative Toolkit recently, but that's another way that Google is helping, you know, not just Be Found Online, but all of you as clients with your YouTube creative strategy. We are trying to make it as easy as possible for you to kind of develop those videos, because we don't believe that the lack of video should be the biggest obstacle to getting on YouTube, right? So I think everything that Curtis was saying, I agree with. It sounds a lot more daunting than it actually is, but when you do work with an agency that has a lot of expertise in this, they make the process easier.
Thanks.
Cool. All right, we've got a few more in here. So this one I think is a little more technical. Where can I find out about my customers or site traffic?
If you're running ads, you can go right into, I believe it's under audiences. You can see demographic information, gender, age, parental status, which is a big one for people doing e-commerce. Even if you're targeting the entire US, you just click into that little portion. You can expand out by city, state, DMA. If you're not running ads, go into GA4. You can see in-market audiences. So that's based on touch points, how Google feels you're most likely for, or what you're most likely into. So it could be sports, it could be concert ticket. There's affinity audiences. I always explain affinities as this is where you're going based on your behavior, and they're going to create a persona for you. So our owner, Steve, he's the CEO of a company. He lives in Chicago. He's a Cubs fan. There's a persona in Google based on Steve's affinities just there. And one added thing that is outside of the Google world, if you are B2B and you do not have your LinkedIn Insight tag installed on your site, do it now. It is free. It shows you everyone coming to your site, even if you're not running ads. It shows you companies. It shows you job titles. It shows you roles. This is invaluable. You have to use this. If you're going to start running LinkedIn ads, or you just want to know who's engaging, it's all right there. Spoiler, number one is usually your own employees, but you can decipher everything from there.
Very cool. Awesome. What should I do if I have a small budget?
If you have a small budget and you want to run ads, you should run Performance Max ads through Google. It's a blend of AI and human touch. It gets your ads everywhere. You can have ads showing on Google Maps, showing on YouTube, showing on display. It really helps you stretch your budget as far as you can. You can set marketing goals. So if you have a CPA goal, an ROI goal, you do have to have hard conversions on your site. So you don't want to drive just a click goal. It's going to be a download the white paper, purchase the thing, sign up for the webinar, things like that. They're highly efficient. We do see them scalable or scaling up, and you can segment them out by multiple products and things. So it's not throwing everything into one bucket. Uday, what did I miss about Performance Max?
No, I think that was perfect. I just wanted to add that I 100% agree with that. With small budget, you should be on Performance Max. It's also a good time for you to think about your foundational strategy, right? A lot of what I talked about today was, do I have the right conversions in there? Do I have the right CRM strategy? Like, are the existing ads the best ads that they can be? Sure, I think we emphasize a lot on having adequate budgets, and I think that certainly fuels your entire strategy. But there's a lot that you can and should be thinking about outside of budgets from a more fundamental standpoint too.
Great. I love this back and forth because it leads me directly into this next question. Somebody's asked, how does Google's relationship with Be Found Online support us in the process? I think the us being the client.
Yeah, I can take this one. So I touched upon this a little bit, but we have a concept called strategic value ads that we offer to Be Found Online because they are a premier partner. One example I can give you is, if Be Found Online comes to us and says, we have a client with a very, very specific problem statement. Can we loop in your engineering team to work on this? I can help with that, right? Another example I'll give you is, if Be Found Online comes to me and says, we have a client that really wants to get on YouTube, but let's say, for example, we're short on bandwidth and cannot create the creatives in that moment, we can help create those creatives, right? So essentially, we as Google offer a lot of these strategic value adds to Be Found Online and give them the autonomy and discretion on how, where, and when they would like to use this. There are a plethora of options when it comes to different strategic value adds we can offer to Be Found Online. So I'd safely say whatever your business need is, there's probably some way that Google can also help with it. The most important thing that I'll mention is the fact that we can allocate headcount on your individual strategy is probably the best value add that we can offer, right? Because we work with Be Found Online. If Curtis says, hey, we just started working with this new client, can we get them, an expert in lead gen? I can look to allocate headcount on that client to support that specific strategy, right? So I think there's strategic value adds we can offer. There's general expertise, resources, betas, and stuff that we always share with Be Found Online. And anything that you need, there is probably a service offering that we can provide to Be Found Online that trickles into your business.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. These last two questions, they kind of rein us back in towards the heart of this webinar. So this next question is, how important is it to have the fundamentals in place during a period of economic uncertainty? Followed up with, should we focus on having the fundamentals in place or capturing increased market share?
It's a great question. I think, again, it's important for me to say that every business is unique, right? Think about, what is my current business need? Do I need to work on the fundamentals, or do I need to work on expansion, for example? So that would be the starting point for you to think about, what do I currently need? What is my main KPI that I'm trying to drive? It is always a good time to work on fundamentals, though. That's how I'd answer it, that, similar to my previous answer on budgets, your budget is only as efficient if your fundamentals are in place, right? So think about that lead to sales strategy, that lead to sales journey, your bid strategy, again, how efficient your creatives are. Curtis mentioned your remarketing strategy. We consider a lot of these to be fundamentals because you can do a lot of this with somewhat smaller budgets. So during a time of economic uncertainty, when you are probably short on cash flow, is a great time to work on fundamentals. You can always expand again, but if you have the opportunity to expand, it's also a great time, right? Because most clients out there probably cannot expand and they're probably being very conservative right now. So if you do have the ability and affordability to expand beyond fundamentals, you should be doing that.
Yep. Awesome. All right. The last question, I saved this one for last because I feel like it's a great.
I think, Curtis, did you want to add something?
Yeah. In
Oh,
terms of fundamentals, I always throw this out there. You need to be running brand ads for your brand campaign or brand keywords. A lot of folks don't feel the need to do it. One question we always get is, well, we're number one on SEO. Okay, well, let's say you're having a flash sale. SEO can't show up that day. No offense to my SEO teammates, you can't do it. In addition, if someone else is bidding on your terms, they can conquest you, is what we call it. They can't put your name in their copy, but if they make a better widget than you, they can bid on your name and say the number one selling widget in the United States, all off of your name in that search bar. So brand defense, you own the language, you own the messaging, you own where you're landing them. It's really important, especially in times of uncertainty, because you're controlling where your consumer and where that intent is going. There's blogs on the BFO site that can tell you more about this, but fundamentals, stay on your brand terms, run a branded campaign.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Curtis. Thank you.
All good.
I'm very glad we did not miss that. That's great information. But that does lead me to our last question here. I felt like this was a good sign off one. It's a two-parter. Where do I go from here? What's my immediate next step of action?
I can take this one. We talked about a lot of different things, right? And some of it may apply entirely to your business. Some of it may not apply to your business. I would say first and foremost, look out for that follow-up email from Kyle. Go through a lot of the content that we talked about. Try remembering, is my strategy the same as what they recommend? If not, what needs to happen? In a more specific way, I would say identify your current business needs, identify if that is being translated to Google Ads, identify a good CRM strategy, a good bidding strategy, and your business needs. Those 5 things I would say are your main kind of takeaways. You do not have to have a good presence on all of them, but if there is a problem statement you are trying to solve, through this entire content we talked about today, there is probably something relevant for you in there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's the extent of the questions. I think we got through everything.
Yeah, awesome.
So, does anybody want to add anything before we conclude, or else I can wrap us up here?
Thank you,
Awesome.
everyone.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for taking the time to spend with us on your Wednesday. Again, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, where you're at, we do appreciate you joining us. We know there's a lot of questions around this, so please, if you have any questions after this webinar, don't hesitate to reach out. You can always reach out to me at kyle@befoundonline.com, and I can direct your questions in the right path. I will be sending along a recap email that includes recap of this video, as well as the slides and some additional information. So be on the lookout for that. And with that, thank you all so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.